Welcome to a new debate of duo discourse. Okay, so let's get into this. Today we're doing a deep dive into Hinduism.
And where do you even begin? It's often called the world's oldest surviving spiritual tradition.
Right, and that's the challenge, isn't it? That's our mission today. How do you define something so vast?
No single founder, no single book.
And believers can have completely different ideas about God, about reality. It just seems to break all the rules of what we in the West think of as a religion.
It absolutely does. And that's really the best place to start. The term Hinduism itself is, well, it's an umbrella term.
An umbrella for what exactly?
For a huge synthesis of countless Indian spiritual traditions. We're talking about a fusion of ancient Brahmanical practices, traditions from the Indus Valley Civilization, and, thousands of local community beliefs that have evolved over millennia.
So Hinduism is almost an external label, a modern convenience to categorize things that aren't Buddhism or Jainism, but come from that part of the world.
Precisely. That fusion really started to coalesce into what we'd recognize as classical Hinduism sometime between, say, 500 BCE and 300 CE.
But what do adherents call it themselves? What's the insider's view?
Well, there are two key terms. The first, and maybe the most profound, is Sanatana Dharma.
Which means?
The eternal way, or the eternal law. It suggests that the tradition's origins are beyond human history, that its truths are eternal, they were revealed, not invented.
That immediately changes the frame. It's not about a historical event, but about a constant underlying reality.
It is. And the second term is Vedika Dharma, which just means Vedic Dharma. This points to the acceptance of the Vedas as the ultimate authoritative knowledge.
And that acceptance is the dividing line, right? It separates the orthodox schools from the others that grew in the same soil, like Buddhism.
Exactly. It's that root authority. But you're right, it still defies the Western model. There's no single founder, no single creed. That's why many scholars and practitioners prefer to call it Dharma, a way of life, which is so much broader than religion.
I've heard some academics use the term fuzzy edges to describe it.
That's a great way to put it. It's like a family resemblance. You don't all have to look identical to belong to the family.
And that explains the incredible theological diversity. I mean, how can you have polytheists, monotheists, and even atheists all under the same umbrella?
Because the unity isn't based on a specific belief about God. You can be a monist, believing in one single impersonal reality. You can be henotheistic, where you worship one God without denying the others.
Or even atheistic. How does that work?
Some of the early philosophical schools, like Samkhya, were fundamentally agnostic. They operated within the same shared context of ideas, like karma and the goal of liberation, but didn't require a supreme being. The intellectual freedom is just immense.
Okay, let's turn to the timeline. To understand how it got so multifaceted, we have to go way back. Where does the story even begin?
It begins far, far back. We're talking the Bronze Age, with the Indus River Valley Civilization, which peaked around 2500 BCE. So the earliest roots could be over 4,000 years old.
And what do we actually find there? What are the links to what we see today?
We see hints, tantalizing clues. For instance, there's evidence of ritual bathing, which is, still a huge part of Hinduism. We see seals with figures in what look like yogic postures.
The Proto-Shiva seal.
That's the famous one, the Pashupati seal. It suggests some early form of deity worship. Then, after the Indus Valley collapses, we have the Vedic period, starting around 1900 BCE.
And this is where the texts, the Vedas, come from. What was that early religion like?
It was very different from modern Hinduism. It was focused on big external fire sacrifices called yajna. The goal was to appease nature gods Indra for rain, Agni for fire, to get worldly rewards.
Very pragmatic. Good harvests, winning battles.
Exactly. But then, between about 800 and 200 BCE, you get this massive turning point, a huge philosophical shift.
The same period that produced Buddhism and Jainism. What happened?
People started to question the external rituals. They realized that even if you did everything right, the rewards, like a temporary stay in heaven, were, well, temporary. The merit would run out, and you'd be right back in the cycle of suffering.
So they started looking for a permanent escape.
Precisely. And this is where the Upanishads come in. They are the later part of the Vedas, and they introduce the concepts that become the bedrock of Hinduism, Samsara and karma.
The cycle of reincarnation and the law of cause and effect.
Yes. And the ultimate goal shifts from getting good things in the world to getting out of the cycle entirely. The quest for moksha, or liberation.
So the focus moves from outside, from the fire to the inside. The true sacrifice becomes internal.
That's the essence of it. It's a shift from ritual to self-knowledge, and that shift defined everything that came after.
Which brings us directly to the texts. If there's no single Bible, what makes up this sacred library? How is it organized?
It's classically divided into two main categories. The first and highest authority is Shruti,
Meaning heard?
heard. These are the texts considered to be divinely revealed, timeless truths heard by ancient sages. This is primarily the four Vedas.
The Rig Veda, which is the oldest one with all the hymns.
Right. Then the Yajur Veda for ritual formulas, the Samaveda with chants, and the Atharva Veda, which has spells and more philosophical hymns. And critically, the Upanishads are part of the Shruti. They're the philosophical conclusion of the Vedas.
So that's the divine revelation. What's the second category?
That's Smriti, which means remembered. These are texts composed by human authors, great sages and poets that explain and elaborate on the eternal truths of the Shruti.
And this is where most people today probably connect with the tradition.
Absolutely. Smriti includes the law books, the Puranas with all the myths, and most importantly for modern practice, the great epics.
The Mahabharata and the Ramayana.
Exactly. And inside the Mahabharata is the single most influential text in modern Hinduism,
For Bhagavad Gita.
the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of the Lord.
So here's the paradox. If the Vedas are the ultimate divinely revealed truth, why is a secondary, human-authored text inside an epic poem the spiritual core for millions of people?
That's a brilliant question, and the answer is accessibility. The Vedas are incredibly abstract, dense, and ritually complex.
Hard to apply when you're just trying to live your life.
Exactly. The Gita takes all that profound Upanishadic philosophy and puts it into a practical, relatable context. A warrior having a crisis on a battlefield.
And Krishna, whose God, gives him a direct instruction manual.
A perfect summary. It distills the goal of moksha into clear, actionable paths or yogas that anyone can follow. It made the whole tradition accessible to the everyday person, not just the forest ascetic.
So people still revere the Vedas as the foundation.
They raise their hat to it, as one scholar put it, but for immediate spiritual guidance, they turn to the Gita.
Okay, let's dig into that philosophical engine, the core ideas that hold it all together. Let's start with the cycle itself.
That's Samsara, the endless cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth. It's seen as a wheel of suffering.
And what is it that's being reborn?
The Atman, the eternal self, or soul. It's this imperishable spark that exists in all living things, not just humans. And crucially, it's considered to be a piece of Brahman, the ultimate reality.
So a divine spark is trapped in this cycle. What governs where it goes next?
That is all down to karma, which literally means action. It's the moral law of cause and effect.
And it's important to stress, this isn't a judgment from the God.
No, not at all. It's an impersonal, natural law of the universe, like gravity, but for morality. Good actions and intentions lead to better circumstances in the future. Bad ones lead to suffering. It's completely self-regulating.
So given this system, how is one supposed to live a good life that leads toward freedom?
That's where the four aims of human life, the Purusharthas, come in. They're a balanced roadmap for a fulfilling existence.
And the foundation for everything is Dharma.
Right. Dharma is your moral duty, your ethics, the right way of living that upholds order in the universe.
After that comes Artha, which is the pursuit of wealth and well-being.
Yes, because you can't live a virtuous life if you're destitute. The pursuit of wealth is considered a noble goal as long as it's within the bounds of Dharma.
And then there's Kaima, which is pleasure and desire.
Not just sexual desire, but the enjoyment of art, music, love. It's seen as a healthy and essential part of a complete life.
As long as it's balanced with the other aims.
Exactly. And all of this is in service of the ultimate goal, the fourth aim, which is Moksha.
Liberation, the exit from the whole cycle.
The ultimate freedom.
Let's go back to Dharma, though, because it's not as simple as just do good things.
No, it's highly contextual. This is the core dilemma in the Bhagavad Gita.
Right. The warrior Arjuna has to fight his own family. His universal duty, his Sadharana Dharma, says don't kill.
But his specific duty, his svadharma as a warrior prince, is to fight for justice. And Krishna tells him that failing to perform his specific duty is the greater moral failure.
So your Dharma is unique to you. What's right for a soldier might be wrong for a priest.
Precisely. Context is everything. It's a very sophisticated ethical system.
Okay, from the moral structure to the metaphysical one. The concept of God. How do you unify monism and polytheism?
The unifying concept is Brahman, the supreme spirit, the ultimate reality. Brahman is the impersonal, absolute foundation of everything.
So if the personal gods like Vishnu or Shiva are the waves,
Brahman is the entire ocean. It's the substance from which everything arises.
and the individual soul, the Atman, is a drop of that ocean.
Exactly. And the big philosophical debate is about the exact relationship between the drop in the ocean, between Atman and Brahman.
Which gives us the two major views. Let's start with non-dualism.
That's Advaita Vedanta. Its goal is to realize that the Atman is, and always has been, completely identical to Brahman.
I am Brahman.
Aham Brahmasmi. The sense of being a separate individual is just an illusion called Maya, which is caused by ignorance or avidya. Liberation isn't about becoming one with God. It's about realizing you were never separate to begin with.
That's a huge idea. Separation is just a cognitive error.
It is. Now, contrast that with the dualistic schools, like the Bhakti traditions. For them, God is a supreme being who is eternally separate from individual souls.
So the distinction between the worshiper and the worship is real and permanent.
Yes, and this allows for intense, personal, loving devotion to a specific form of God.
And this is where we get the major branches of worship we see today.
Right. You have Vaishnavism, which focuses on Vishnu and his avatars like Krishna and Rama. You have Shaivism, focused on Shiva. Shaktism, which worships the Divine Mother, the goddess Shakti.
And there's a fourth, Smartism, which is more of a synthesis.
Yes, Smartism follows the non-dual philosophy of Advaita, but for worship it treats 5 deities, Vishnu, Shiva, the goddess, Ganesha, and Surya, as equal manifestations of the one impersonal Brahman. It's a way to harmonize all the paths.
So if the goal is moksha, how does one actually get there? This brings us to the formal schools of philosophy.
The 6 orthodox schools, or Shadarshanas, these are rigorous, systematic paths to liberation.
Let's touch on a few key ones. The most dominant today is probably Vedanta.
Yes, Vedanta is all about the Upanishads. It focuses on achieving liberation through knowledge, or jnana, realizing the nature of the self and its relationship to Brahman.
And within Vedanta, you have those different views we just talked about. Non-dualism, qualified non-dualism, and dualism.
Exactly, a huge spectrum of thought just within that one school.
Now, what about a school with a completely different approach? You mentioned Samkhya.
Samkhya is fascinating. It's a purely dualistic system. It says there are 2 eternal realities, Purusha, which is pure consciousness, the soul,
A silent observer.
the silent observer, and Prakriti, which is the material world, everything from rocks to our own thoughts and emotions.
So liberation, for Samkhya, isn't about union.
It's the exact opposite. It's about complete separation. It's about the soul, Purusha, realizing its total independence from the ever-changing, suffering material world of Prakriti.
That's a fundamental fork in the road of Hindu thought. And this philosophy directly informs yoga.
Yes, yoga, as codified by Patanjali, is essentially the practical application of Samkhya philosophy. It provides the methodology to achieve that isolation of the soul.
Through the Eightfold Path. And it's so much more than just physical postures.
Oh, absolutely. The postures, asana, are only the 3rd limb. It starts with ethics, the yamas and niyamas, like nonviolence and truthfulness. Then comes breath control, and only then do you get to the deep stages of meditation that lead to liberation.
And finally, there's a path that isn't so much about intellectual rigor or physical discipline.
That's bhakti, the path of devotion. It's about cultivating an intense, loving, emotional relationship with a personal form of God.
It's a path of the heart.
It is. It's one of the most accessible and powerful paths, and the Gita even calls it the highest yoga, open to anyone regardless of their background. It's about surrender and love, not just knowledge or discipline.
Okay, let's bring this down to daily life. How does all this philosophy influence culture and ethics? The foundational principle seems to be eyesight.
Yes, nonviolence. It comes directly from the belief that the divine, the Atman, is present in all living beings. So to harm another being is, in a way, to harm the divine and to harm yourself.
Which is the basis for the widespread practice of vegetarianism.
It is. And it's also why the cow is held in such high reverence as a symbol of gentle, selfless giving.
Now, what about the social structure, the Varna system?
Right, the Varnashrama Dharma. The first part is Varna, which organizes society into 4 classes. Brahmins, the priests and teachers, Kshatriyas, the warriors and rulers, Vaishyas, the merchants, and Shudras, the laborers.
Now, in the texts, this is based on a person's inherent nature, their aptitude, not just birth.
That's the ideal, yes. But over time, the historical reality became the much more rigid, birth-based caste system, or jati, which led to deep social inequalities. The philosophical model and the social reality are often in conflict.
And the second part of that framework is the ashrama system.
The 4 stages of life. You start as a student, then you become a householder, marrying, raising a family, contributing to society.
And that householder stage is considered the most important, sociologically.
It is, because the householders sustain everyone else. They create the wealth and the family structures that support the students, the retirees, and the renunciates.
And after being a householder, you transition to being a retiree and then a renunciate, focusing completely on the goal of moksha.
That's the ideal life path.
And in terms of daily practice, what does that look like?
It's incredibly diverse. It can be daily worship or puja at a home shrine. There are life cycle rituals called saskaras, and of course the huge festivals like Diwali and Holi that bring the community together.
Pilgrimage is also a big part of it.
Yes, pilgrimage to a sacred site. But the texts also talk about an internal pilgrimage, purifying the mind through virtues like compassion and truth. The journey can be just as much internal as it is external.
So we've covered the history, the philosophy, the paths to liberation. Let's end by returning to that ultimate philosophical conundrum, especially from the non-dual perspective.
This is where Advaita Vedanta really leaves you with a profound question. If liberation or moksha is simply the realization that your soul was never actually separate from the ultimate reality, that the oneness was always there.
Then the whole journey wasn't about achieving something new.
Exactly. It wasn't about earning a reward or reaching a destination. The entire difficult process of ethical living, study, and meditation was really just about removing the illusion.
Wiping away the ignorance, the avidya that was blocking you from seeing a truth that was already present.
Right. And that raises a provocative question for you to think about. If liberation is just realizing a pre-existing fact, what does that say about all our effort and striving in the material world?
It changes the whole meaning of the spiritual quest. It suggests that all suffering is just a kind of cognitive error. And if the truth is already inherent within us, what does that imply about the very nature of time, effort, and the human journey itself? How does a path based on knowing differ from one based on doing or believing?
It invites you to consider if the greatest journey isn't to some faraway goal, but simply the shocking, immediate, internal realization of what you have been all along.